Hey guys, it's me today on the show. Paul Manaforte is sentenced to prison. The Berkeley puncher appears in court, and a rabid anti-Semite in Congress is punished by Democrats by making her into a victim and blaming who else? White dudes. Stick around for it.
Carson Show. Are you ready to be podsmacked? Now, here's Rob Carson.
And everybody, you know, pod smacking can be funny. Funny and fun. And we're going to have some fun today. And I might even make you laugh. This show's going to be largely political. Which, you know, I mean, we like to talk politics, among other things, on this show. Thank you for joining us here on Range Broadcasting. It is an honor and a privilege, as always. If you check out my swag line, tpublic.com, Conservatives, 80 designs up there. Politically incorrect stuff that you can put on T-shirts, on laptops, on laptop covers, on phone covers, on all sorts of stuff. All right? So check it out, including Hillary in 20 Never, Veganism is an Eating Disorder. You know, lots of designs. You're going to love it. Paul Manaforte, much to the chagrin of Robert Mueller, was only sentenced to, about 4 years in prison. 47 months in jail for tax and bank fraud. After the judge called Robert Mueller's demand for 19 to 24 years excessive. And it was. And it is honestly, to abuse the justice system, to punish your political enemies and ruin their lives, and sentence them to prison for something that, and what he did, sure, there's some criminality involved here. Many of the charges, they were dropped. However, none of this had to do with Russian collusion, and that's the original investigation. This was a fishing expedition. And the Justice Department should have gone after Paul Manafort. I mean, they should have gone after Paul Manafort for bank fraud charges and whatnot, with evidence for the bank fraud charges, not going after him looking for Russian collusion with Donald Trump. 4-year sentence, well below what prosecutors were asking. Also, we could have gotten up to $24 million fine. He got a $50,000 fine. That was a minimum, by the way. Judge T.S. Ellis, not T.S. Elliott, handed down the sentence, said the former Donald Trump campaign chairman should not get credit for cooperating with authorities, but also said the former lobbyist and power broker had otherwise lived a blameless life. So Manafort has already served several months behind bars, including most of it in solitary confinement, which is obscene for what he has done. He may receive credit. He will likely turn 70 at a prison camp in Cumberland, Maryland. Eligible for release in 38 months. Also eligible for pardon by the president. I hope he does. He faces further sentencing in federal court next week before Judge Amy Berman Jackson. That's bad. 3 names, not good. Ellis said Manafort had no criminal history, highlighted his academic achievements, including attending Georgetown, whatever. He said of the sentencing guidelines that were brought before him, and obviously desired by Robert Mueller, they are not mandatory; they are advisory. Ellis had begun Thursday's proceedings by telling Manafort that he was there to sentence him strictly for the crimes he admitted, and not for alleged involvement in Trump-Russia collusion. He is not here before the court because of any allegations that he or anyone at his direction colluded with the Russian government to influence the 2016 election, which, of course, is why the entire investigation began. Here is Mr. Manafort's lawyer.
Good evening, everyone. As you heard in court today, Mr. Manafort finally got to speak for himself. He made clear he accepts responsibility for his conduct. And I think most importantly, what you saw today is the same thing that we had said from day one. There is absolutely no evidence that Paul Manafort was involved.
I actually really like this guy in the back. He's kind of making fun of protesters by just holding up a sign that says "This is a sign" with an exclamation point, which to me says he's probably libertarian or conservative. I think that's really funny, actually. It's just a sign. This is the guy. I think that's funny.
With any collusion with any government official from Russia. Thank you, everybody.
And I have nothing else to say. So there you go. No Russian collusion, blah, blah, blah. But don't let let the Justice Department, let's try that again. Don't let that stop the Justice Department for sentencing and pursuing people for crimes or alleged crimes not related to Russian collusion. That's happening right now. 81 of Donald Trump's family members and associates being subpoenaed for nothing. There's no crime. They're just being subpoenaed. Unbelievable. So the Berkeley puncher, you saw this kid, Hayden Williams. He was a conservative on Berkeley, which is a dangerous thing. It is absolutely shameful what is happening across the country. In my next podcast, I have a story of a teacher's aide taking a Trump banner and wrapping it around a student's neck. The kid was holding it. Wasn't trying to strangle him, but she definitely doesn't like Donald Trump. We saw a hall monitor the other day knock a MAGA hat off a kid. Saw a MAGA hat knocked off a kid's head and stolen in a restaurant and soda thrown in his face. This is happening all over the country. Why is it happening all over the country? Because you've got idiots in Congress like Maxine Waters, idiots in the news industry saying that a MAGA hat is essentially a KKK hood, whipping the mob to violence. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Here is the original punch. Zachary Greenberg is the asshole who did it. He is 28 years old. Why he's 28 years old and in the library at Berkeley, whoever knows. I'm sure he's probably living in his basement and still in school. He's probably still an undergrad, starting at 18. Here is the original offense.
Put your hands on me again, motherfucker. Racist little different, bitch. Fuck.
There you go. There is the sucker punch, everybody. There is the sucker punch that was heard around the world. And it was a sucker punch because he's a coward and a weasel. And I wish I would have been there because I would have loved to tackle that son of a bee. I would have loved to have just tackled him right there and done a citizen's arrest. But here is Zachary Greenberg, the coward, leaving the courtroom, and his lawyer, of course, doing all the talking for him. I hope he goes to jail. He probably won't.
Mr. Greenberg or counsel, any thoughts at this time?
Mr. Coward, Greenberg.
The punch and the charge. I know
you don't want to comment? You don't want to shoot your big fast mouth off right now?
You can direct the microphones my way.
Is there anything you can say?
Well, I've just gotten the case, or this investigation is beginning.
Come on, coward. Talk, coward.
But I can make a few remarks. Mr. Greenberg is a 28-year-old man.
Who, is still probably an undergrad.
He was using the library at UC Berkeley to study.
Study for his lesbian poetry degree.
He has a clean record.
Yeah.
I realize that
he's just a giant, flaming, violent a-hole.
Many people observing this case are interested in constitutional freedom. And
constitutional freedom involves freedom of speech and not restricting it by punching out somebody you disagree with.
I would remind that one important constitutional freedom is the presumption of innocence,
of course.
Due process of law,
of course, and yes,
due process in a
I think the whole video thing might kind of be troublesome, though.
Courtroom, not on social media or the internet.
Yeah, the internet.
With those remarks, I have no further comments at this time. Thank you very much.
Was he a student at? He was using the library. Is he a student?
He is not a student at UC Berkeley.
He was actually there because he had his internet access shut off at home because his mom stopped paying the bill, and he went to the library to watch porn.
He is a student elsewhere.
Can you say, was he a former
student
either doctoral researcher or some kind of employee at Cal prior to the current status?
I do not know the answer to that.
Yeah, you do. Yes, you do.
And
he was there trying to pick up college chicks.
Can you tell us about this motion? Why you wanted it sealed? Why you wanted the probable cause statement sealed?
Not at this time.
Okay. Any other? I mean, obviously this was caught on video, coward. Widely spread.
Shut up.
Did Hayden, incite your client? Is this going to be like a?
Yeah, he stood there.
Self-defense or heat of passion, not talking about 192, but
there's no evidence of self-defense.
Was he incited to do what he allegedly did, and is that a defense?
It would be premature for me to answer a question like this about the substance of the case.
Yes.
At this time, I've just received the evidence from the DA 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, the evidence is pretty obvious. It was a video, actually. In fact, I think I actually have the evidence right here. Pretty much, yeah. Hold on. Let's watch the evidence again, shall we, kids? Hold on. There we go.
Put your hands on me again, motherfucker. Racist little different, bitch. Fuck.
Mother effer, bitch. Mother effer, F, BAP. Right in the face. Unbelievable. Let's move on. To Representative Ilhan Omar. She is a radical leftist from the state of Minnesota. Not a big surprise. She is a part of a group of, and this is happening in not only Minneapolis, but also Detroit. These are hotbeds of radical Islam that are moving into the country. And she's one of them. She came from Somalia. Her father and mother, they fled Somalia when the regime that was over there was overthrown. I was listening to Chris Plant's show today. Chris Plant's a friend and a colleague, and apparently Ilhan Omar's father was involved in the government that was overthrown. The government is a Stalinist, Leninist government. He is an acolyte. And they left the country because the people said, F you with that government. And they fled because their radicalism and their association with this authoritarian regime would have put them all in danger. So that's why they left. It wasn't because, they were being politically persecuted, whatever. It's just the family and the regime were being overthrown. Or at least the regime were being overthrown, and the family was a part of it. They were a part of it, just as much a part of the Castro regime, maybe just as much a part as the Gaddafi regime, and that's why they left. She is a radical anti-Semite. Make no bones about it. She has a history of making anti-Semitic comments. She was actually approached in Minnesota by the Democrat Party and counseled about what she shouldn't say or what she should say. And she clearly cannot not be anti-Semitic. It's in her blood. It's in her soul. She is a radical Islamist. That's it. 2012, she posted on Twitter that Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel. Does it get more anti-Semitic than that? We're not stupid, Democrats. We're not stupid. And we're going to get to the stupid resolution that was passed by the Democrats that did everything but blame Ilhan Omar for her anti-Semitism. Why is it that so many self-loathing Jews belong to the Democrat Party? Why is it that there are so many self-loathing Jews in the United States who would sympathize and empathize with Ilhan Omar and the PLO or Hamas? Why is it? It's idiocy to me. 2018 campaign trail. Omar attempted to reassure voters that she does not support the radical boycott, divestment, and sanctions BDS movement that opposes Zionism, endorses Nazi-style boycotts of Jewish businesses, and attempts to delegitimize the state of Israel. But within days of her election to the House, she flipped on the issue, giving BDS her support. From the New York Post, before I get to this idiotic resolution, and you're going to love it. It's wow. The first line doesn't even blame her. This is according to the New York Post. Representative Ilhan Omar has turned into a de facto endorsement of hate speech by leading lights of the Democrat Party, with Omar cast as some sort of a victim of those who called out her blatant, repeated traffic in anti-Semitism. Facing calls to pull Omar from the House Foreign Affairs Committee after the Minnesota freshman's third set of bigoted public remarks in just 2 months, the speaker instead went for a House resolution condemning anti-Semitism, but not Omar herself. Unbelievable. It was passed 407 to 23. Several Republicans voted against it, and they're being called anti-Semites because of it. Jim Clyburn claimed Omar's own experience as a Somali refugee means bigotry is more personal to her than to the children of Holocaust survivors. What an a-hole. What a sick reference and comparison to Holocaust victims. Unreal. Now they're saying she's the real victim. Now here is House HR 183. Now, the reason why it exists, the reason why it is written was because Ilhan Omar had said some anti-Semitic things. This is the reason why this was written, okay? This is the only reason it was written. It's not because of anything else. This is not because of any previous acts of anti-Semitism. It has nothing to do with any of it at all whatsoever. It all has to do with a reaction to Ilhan Omar. And rather than censuring her, the Democrat Party has decided to make her into a martyr. Ilhan Omar is a millennial. Right now, we are seeing the fruits of millennial brainwashing in Congress. We are seeing it with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar. These are spoiled, entitled children who have no knowledge of history. And they're marching in, and they're basically telling Mom, go down the candy aisle. I'm going to get whatever I want. And Mom is going to go, okay, Nancy Pelosi, she's pushing the cart. Ilhan Omar and AOC are sitting up there in the top part of the cart. And Nancy's going to go to the non-candy aisle. And the two millennials are raising hell. And Nancy's going to pull over to the candy aisle. That wasn't a bad analogy. Here's the first couple of lines. The first couple of lines right here. Okay. Again, this is because Ilhan Omar is saying anti-Semitic stuff. Condemning anti-Semitism as hateful expressions of intolerance that are contradictory to the values and aspirations that define the people of the United States, and condemning anti-Muslim discrimination and bigotry against minorities as hateful expressions of intolerance that are contrary to the values and aspirations of the United States. No, this is all about anti-Semitism. This is all about a radical Islamist. It is not about her being the victim, but of course, now they're saying condemning anti-Muslim discrimination like she's the victim. So there you go. First couple of lines, she's the victim. Resolution. Here we go. Oh, and this is where they start blaming Whitey. And this is where they start using the nonsense rhetoric that's being used in academia. White supremacy, white supremacists, blah, blah, blah. Whereas white supremacists in the United States have exploited and continue to exploit bigotry and weaponize hate for political gain, targeting traditionally persecuted people, including African Americans, Latinos, Native Americans, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders. Pacific Islanders, really? Tell that to The Rock. And other people of color, Jews are people of color, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, the LGBTQ community, immigrants, and others with verbal attacks, incitement, and violence. Where's the attacking people with MAGA hat on? It's not in here. Then they refer to things that happened in the past that have nothing to do with Ilhan Omar and her rabid anti-Semitism. Whereas on August 11th, 12th, 2017, self-identified neo-Confederates, white nationalists, neo-Nazis, and Ku Klux Klansmen held white supremacist events in Charlotte. Okay? Nothing to do with this event. Whereas white nationalists murdered 9 African-American worshipers in Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina in 2015. Whereas in 2017, the Federal Bureau of Investigation reported a rise in an increase in hate crimes against Jews. Whereas Jews are a target of anti-Semitic violence at even higher rates than other countries than they are in the United States. So now they're saying it's not that big a deal here. Let's look at other countries and blame them. Whereas scapegoating of and targeting of Jews in the United States have persisted for many years, including by the Ku Klux Klan, the America First Committee, and by modern neo-Nazis. What about radical Islamists? What about radical Islamists? This is just crap. Whereas accusations of dual loyalty generally have an insidious and pernicious history. That's Omar. She did that. This is stupid. The discriminatory incarcerations of Americans of Japanese descent during World War II based on their race. Democrat did it. The Dreyfus Affair, when Alfred Dreyfus, a Jewish French artillery captain, was falsely convicted of passing secrets to Germany. This happened last century in France. What the hell does it have to do with Ilhan Omar? Whereas Muslims and people perceived to be Muslims are subjected to false and dangerous stereotypes and myths. What the hell is this all about? What does this have to do with a radical Islamist saying things that are anti-Semitic? Nothing. Resolved. The House of Representatives rejects the perpetuation of anti-Semitic stereotypes in the United States and around the world. This is so meaningless and stupid. Rejects attempts to justify hatred or violent attacks as an accepted expression of disapproval for or frustration over political events in the Middle East or elsewhere. MAGA hats. Rejects attempts to justify hatred or violent attacks as an acceptable expression of disapproval or frustration over political events. MAGA hats. Antifa rallies. Inauguration Day in Washington, D.C. The Women's March. Condemns anti-Muslim discrimination and bigotry against all minorities as contrary to the value. So it's condemns anti-Muslim discrimination, number one, because she's the victim, and then all the other minorities. Unbelievable. This should be called, instead of H.R. 183, it should be called POS 183. Just don't even know. And it's interesting because Nancy Pelosi commented on this. And she basically insulted Omar as kind of, she's so stupid she doesn't understand what she's saying. Had this been said by a Republican about a protected minority, a female Muslim, the world would be upside down. But here she is saying that Ilhan Omar is so stupid she doesn't realize the full weight of the words she used.
What you might read in the press.
Do you think that Ilhan Omar understands why her comments were problematic? And what happens if this happens again?
Well, first of all, thank you for the question. I don't think that that the Congresswoman is perhaps appreciate the full weight of how it's heard by other people, although I don't believe it was intended.
Yeah. Was it intended when she said, Israel has hypnotized the world, may Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel? Son of a gun. I didn't know what I was saying.
In any anti-Semitic way. But the fact is that that's how it was interpreted. We have to remove all doubt, as we have done over and over again.
Yeah, generally, if everybody interprets it as anti-Semitism, it's anti-Semitism.
We're working now on a resolution. We'll see when we bring it to the floor that will, again, speak out against anti-Semitism.
How brave. How brave in 2019 to speak out against anti-Semitism and anti-racism. Wow, that's ballsy. Yeah, we've pretty much been doing that for a long time. Meaningless, mindless pap. Meaningless, mindless pap. Here's some good news, though, for AOC, or not AOC, for Ilhan Omar. Former KKK Grand Wizard David Duke praised Representative Ilhan Omar on Thursday, basically saying that she's the most important member of Congress. There we go. Oh, that's Ilhan Omar is now the most important member of U.S. Congress. Duke tweeted with a picture of Omar with a smiley face covered with hearts. Wow. The most important person in Congress. Unbelievable. Here's a montage of the media defending the anti-Semite, by the way.
I think it's just part of a learning process that we have as
as a country, frankly?
Ilhan Omar is a refugee from Somalia.
Yeah.
She comes from a different culture. She has things to learn.
There's a lot of things that we've got to do for the people, like healthcare and infrastructure, and we need to move on.
This controversy over anti-Semitic or not has really allowed us to cover over and paper over, I think, some otherwise legitimate questions that are fair to be raised. She talked about the power of special lobbying interest in Washington, D.C.
They're distracting in every way, shape, or form. We need to focus on infrastructure and not on this.
These words have a history and a cultural impact that might have been unknown to her.
And I want to tell you,
she absolutely understands it. She's been on. She's not a child anymore. She's a friggin' Congress member.
That Ilhan Omar, Congresswoman, is under tremendous attack, death threats. I think maybe she needs some security. And why? Because I think in part the Republicans and the media.
It's the Republicans.
Yeah, have blown this up to be much more than it is.
No, she has a history of it.
Many people in their freshman term have said things they regret. She's
been saying them for a very long time, not just her freshman term.
Apologized. She's accepted responsibility.
No, she hasn't.
It's now time to move on.
You apologize for your last remarks. How are these different?
I'm on the phone, but not really. Thank you, Gravy and News. You're awesome. The Democrat Party is fundamentally broken. In some ways, I'm really glad to see this happen, but at the same time, I'm very concerned because you've got a millennial class moving in. Just 2 members of Congress right now, but they are directing the choir. They are directing the choir right now, and they are moving the party very, very left. Old school Democrats like Bernie Sanders, who's left of left, and Elizabeth Warren, left of left. They are buying into it as well. This is your Democrat Party. If you are a moderate Democrat, which I don't think exists anymore, I'd be very concerned. Is this a winning ideology right now in this country? No. But I do worry about the future. As long as I am able to fight, I will fight it. And I will say America will never be a socialist country. I won't live in it. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to leave. No. No. I think I know you. You know what I'm saying. And the millions of other people won't live in it. So you can say all you want about the Green New Deal and getting rid of air travel and socialism and socialized medicine. But there are a whole lot of people who aren't going to go that way. And I'm one of them. Joe Lieberman, who nobody ever thought he'd be the voice of reason, but he says that Dems will be held accountable if they don't act on Ilhan Omar's comments, although they already did with a stupid piece of legislation.
First thing is that words matter, and when people say words that are biased, bigoted, and hurtful to another group of people, another group of Americans, they have to be condemned quickly, or else it takes hold. And that I'm not only thinking about anti-Semitism, I'm thinking about racism, I'm thinking about any kind of bigotry toward any religious group or any other group. So I think this is a time of testing for the House of Representatives, and if I may, it's really a moral test about how clearly they will speak out in this case against what Congresswoman Omar said, which was clearly anti-Semitic.
If it was a test, they have failed. If it were a test, it failed. They failed. Big time. Unbelievable. I'm going to go ahead and do this story now. Another bit of hate perpetrated on a Trump supporter. This relatively mild compared to being punched in the face on the campus of Berkeley. Okay. New York County School Division investigate an incident at Tabb High School in Yorktown as a personal matter. Apparently, there was a kid there in the class who had a banner on, a Trump in 2020 banner on, which, may have been provocative, but it certainly did not involve provoking a teacher to go and remove the banner. That's what happened. Here's the news story.
Well, David, it's a story that's upsetting a lot of people. The district tells us the woman in the video is a teacher's assistant, and community members think she should be fired.
The York County School Division released a statement after this video post continues circulating online. The video is quick and doesn't show the whole interaction, but many still think it's unacceptable.
It's wrong. That's the wrong thing to be teaching kids.
The video shows a teacher's assistant in a classroom wrapping a President Donald Trump 2020 flag around a student's neck.
I don't care what it is, okay? I don't think that, I think that particular action is out of hand.
The district spokesperson says the division is aware of the video depicting an interaction between a paraeducator and a student. It also says, quote, "We take this matter seriously as we do with all other concerns brought to our attention."
I don't think any grown-up teacher or parent or anybody that's an adult should wrap anything around kids' face.
The statement from the school goes on to say the division believes every student is entitled to a safe and welcoming school environment. School board policy also recognizes that school time and school property should not be used for political purposes.
Okay. So, the kid had the banner on. The teacher could go over easily and say, "Hey, let's, put it away." She chose to show her political ideology, I'm assuming, by taking it and wrapping it around the kid's head. Is this an unforgivable crime? No. Is it an act of violence? No. But it is to me troubling. I don't think it needs to be blown completely out of proportion. Do I think this woman needs to be fired? No, I wouldn't necessarily say that. But it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon. And I would actually call this very mild compared to some of the other anti-Trump violence that's happening around the country. Okay, let's talk about one of my favorite sponsors, which is Dots Pretzels. Dots Pretzels are amazing. They are absolutely delicious, fantastic. Originally made in North Dakota. They got a plant up there. They got a plant near Kansas City, in the Kansas side of Kansas City. And they've got a plant in Arizona. That's how fast this company's growing. And it's because they are the best pretzels ever. They just are. And listen, I'm a food guy. I do food blog, food podcast, have food videos on the web. I've been cooking most of my life, and they're just wonderful. Buttery, a little salty, a little oniony, a little heat. And you won't want to put anything on them. You don't want to put anything on them. They're that good. You got to order them if you can't find them in stores near you. So just go to dotspretzels.com, dotspretzels.com, order a bunch of the big bags because you're going to want them. When you run out, you're going to want them. My wife brings them home from her work, and they're incredible. So dotspretzels.com, dotspretzels.com for Dots Pretzels. Coming up, a feel-good video featuring ISIS being wiped off the map in Syria. I'll share that in just a moment. Also, a legislator has introduced legislation nationally to lower the federal voting age to 16. I wonder why they'd want that. So we'll get to that in a few. R. Kelly's lawyer, we saw his explosive interview with Gayle King this week. He's a creep. He's a child molester. He has a 20-plus year record of this stuff. A 20-plus year record of the stuff, including marrying, I believe, was a 15-year-old. This guy is a creep who needs to go to jail. He needs to go to jail for the rest of his life. Ed Jensen represented R. Kelly for over a decade. He has terminal cancer now. He's 77 years old. I didn't realize that in 2008, R. Kelly went to trial for child pornography charges. But he did. Ed Jensen represented him. Ed Jensen says he is guilty as hell for the child pornography charges he was acquitted of. He said, I'll tell you a secret in this interview. I had him go to doctors to get shots, libido-killing shots. That's why he didn't get arrested for anything else. I didn't facilitate him. He'd already done what he'd done. I did facilitate him in a sense that I kept him out of trouble for 10 years. I was vetting his records. I listened to them, which one would make a judge mad. Now, apparently, he actually listened to his lyrics, R. Kelly's lyrics. And he had written some obvious lyrics showing that he was attracted to young girls. One of the songs that he flagged was in 2003. It was a hit song called Ignition, which the former lawyer said raised some serious concerns. I was riding in a car, listening to the song, and saying, are you crazy? This is all I need. It's a song related to a guy driving around in a car with his girlfriend who was originally a high school instructor in class teaching people how to drive a car. I changed the words. Despite his commercial success, Jensen, who was suffering from terminal cancer, went on to describe Kelly as not a very bright person. Yeah, he's not. He's just a creep. He's just an awful creep, another performer who can get away with anything because they're a performer. It's the same way with a lot of NFL players. And domestic violence. You get fame, you get a dose of fame, you get a pass. You get a pass if you are of a political, certain political persuasion as well. Like the AG in the state of Virginia, who is under fire after two women have come forward claiming that he raped them. So, Ayanna Pressley has introduced legislation to lower the voting age to 16 in this country. 16 years old. Why would you want to have 16-year-olds vote? Well, if 18 to 34-year-olds lean Democrat, imagine what 16-year-olds do. Here is Ayanna Pressley introducing what I consider to be idiotic legislation. Basically saying that 16-year-olds are underrepresented. And I do understand that. There are 16-year-olds who are underrepresented in a variety of different ways, but they don't deserve the right to vote because they are not adults. They are children, and you have to draw a line somewhere in this country. That line is 18 years of age when you get out of primary school, and you officially probably leave your family's house unless you are a Democrat. Here she is talking about lowering the federal age to 16.
I do believe that if my amendment is enacted, that it will serve to re-engage, re-enfranchise, and recognize those in our democracy that are too often ignored, left out, and left behind. I am here tonight, however, because across this nation, young people are leading the way, which has been the case for every social movement throughout our history.
Yeah, and you know what? Not really. No, I don't think Gandhi was young. I don't think MLK was young. Okay, so there you're wrong. You're already pretty much wrong there. And as far as leading the way, children shouldn't lead the way. Children should not lead the way. They do not have the life experience. They don't have the intellectual capacity. They do not have the brain development. And they are not, and they ain't going to lead me anywhere, okay?
They are organizing and mobilizing.
So what? You can organize a surprise party.
And calling us to action. Making plain the high stakes the next generation faces.
Yeah, the next generation has always faced high stakes.
From gun violence to climate change to the future of work to the solvency of Social Security. Mm-hmm. Activist leaders like...
Yeah, I've been worried about the solvency of Social Security. I'm a Gen Xer, and we were talking about that when I was a teenager.
17-year-old Vickiana, a constituent of mine and a student at Boston Latin who has been at the forefront of the March for Our Lives movement to stem the tide of gun violence.
Yeah.
It is young people like Vickiana who march, organize,
and
remind us daily in the halls of this institution what's at stake and just how high those stakes are. Since the days of abolitionists, suffragists, and civil rights activists, young people have been pushing the wheels of progress forward.
Yeah, but not sophomores in high school. You are incorrect. You are wrong. And this is purely a political ploy to get Democrat votes. And that's what this is all about. You have to draw a line about when adolescence ends and when adulthood begins. And that is after primary school at 18 years of age. And it should stay that way. Why not make it 15? Why not make it 12? Don't you think that kids in middle school are underrepresented? What about 11? What about 6th graders? What about them? Don't you feel that elementary students are a little underrepresented? Nobody listens to them about what they want in their school lunches? What about 1st graders? Aren't they underrepresented? They like cookies. They have no say in whether they get cookies or not. Yeah. Stupid. Stupid. Of all the things that we could be worried about, of all the things that we could be concerned about in this country, giving 16-year-olds the right to vote would be way on the end of it. Want a feel-good video? Here's a feel-good video. We are not hearing much about what's going on in Afghanistan or Iraq. We're not hearing much about what's going on in Syria. This is some footage. ISIS fighters hunkering down in a makeshift camp beside battered vehicles on their last scrap of territory as U.S. fighters prepare to move in. Okay? These are ISIS fighters hunkered down at a riverside camp surrounded by battered vehicles. It's the last scrap of a dying caliphate. The extremist group created a proto-state across large parts of Syria and Iraq in 2014, ruling millions of people, but has since lost all of it except a tiny patch in Baghouz by the Euphrates River. The last ISIS fighters and their families were cornered on Friday among a dense gathering of vehicles and tents on the water's edge, caught between advancing U.S.-backed forces and Syrian regime fighters across the border. Here's the footage that'll make your day. Wipe them off the map. Wipe them off the map. Drop one of those mother of all bombs on there. There you go. ISIS brides, this is what awaits you. Come visit glorious Syria and fight for ISIS. General Joseph Botel, head of the U.S. command, warns that those being evacuated are unrepentant, unbroken, and radicalized. That's why they all need to die. This is it right here, kids. This is your glory. This is the glory of fighting for Allah's war in lovely Syria. Yeah, that's nice. There you go. You could live in these luxurious accommodations. Look, this is a one-bedroom, no bathroom hut. No electricity or running water as well. Yeah, there you go. That's what you get. That's what U.S. forces do when they are not handcuffed. These are the stories we're not hearing because the mainstream media is focusing on Russia collusion, which doesn't exist anymore, and a new investigation of nothing. All right, I'm going to go. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of the show. Made it a little bit shorter today, but I definitely wanted to cover the Ilhan Omar thing, and I do appreciate it. I hope you will also continue to support the Rain Broadcasting and share with your friends if you would. That would be absolutely wonderful. Again, my name is Rob Carson. You can follow me on Facebook at Rob Carson Show, on Twitter at Rob Carson, and if you would, please go to tpublic.com, conservatives, and order something. I'd greatly appreciate it. In the meantime, God bless you. God, please bring spring, and we will see you very soon. Take care, guys. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to The Rob Carson Show. Find him on Facebook at Carson Show, on Twitter at Rob Carson, and on Instagram, I think Facebook and Twitter are enough for now.